If this is your first night coming to this series, we're on part 6, and this is probably not the night you should have come, because the subject matter has a context that those who have been coming are familiar with. But you're here, so there's nothing we can do about it. You're just going to have to process what we're looking at the best you can, because tonight we're going to be talking about the war on sex in our culture. Now, in order to get there, I need to tell you something about myself. My wife and my 2 daughters have leveled an accusation against me. According to them, I'm weird for a guy. I said, why? They said, because Dad, husband, what is it with you and shopping? Why do you like shopping? Let us go shopping alone. Why do you have to always go with us when we go shopping? It's true, I like shopping, but it's even weirder still because the place I like to shop, really the only place I like to shop, is the grocery store. I'm a grocery store connoisseur. I love going to grocery stores. I went to this Apple Valley Way, whatever it is here today, just to check it out. I just had to see what's in there. I like grocery stores. I'm a grocery store guy. And I have a really, really specific and good method to my madness. When I go in the grocery store, I always follow the same pattern. I go all the way to the right, and I go up and down every single aisle twice upon every visit, because there are 2 sides to the aisle. And I need to see if there's anything new that I've missed, that I haven't seen before. My method is superior to my wife's method. She shops in the grocery store like a pinball machine. She just jumps around with a mental list, getting whatever she wants, and she gets out. It's no fun at all. And so, on this occasion, my wife was making tacos, and I like tacos, and she came right to the point where they were just about ready. And she said, oh no, Ty, we don't have any salsa. Could you go to the grocery store? Quick, Ty, can you do it fast, please? Can you resist the temptation to go up and down every aisle? Can you just go to the grocery store and get some salsa and get back fast? And so I ran out the door to prove to my wife that I can shop like a man. I went straight into the grocery store. I resisted the temptation to go all the way to the right, and I went straight to the salsa aisle. I know exactly where it is. But I encountered a problem in the salsa aisle. There was a woman who was positioned in front of the salsa selection. And she was studious about this. She was focused. I don't even think she saw that I came into the aisle, and I allowed proper, etiquette space for grocery store shopping. Nobody should ever feel you breathing down their neck in the grocery store. So I'm just standing there waiting my turn, looking over her shoulder. I know which one I'm going to get, and I'm just going to grab it and go as soon as she's done. As I stand there, looking over her shoulder, suddenly out of nowhere, something very strange happens. She reaches back her hand and tenderly clasps mine in hers. And there's something you need to know about me. When I get nervous, for some reason, I squeeze a little tighter. And so there we stand in the salsa aisle holding hands. Just me and this woman. And as I'm trying to figure out what to do, because I don't know what to do, this woman, and you have to see this in slow motion because this is exactly how it happened. It happened in slow motion. In real life, in slow motion. This woman, holding my hand, began to turn her head toward mine. And as she was turning her head toward mine, I saw, as the profile became evident, that she was beginning to develop a pucker. And as her head was turning toward mine, she said to me in a rather breathy tone, I might add, medium or hot, sweetie pie. As her lips were coming toward me, I was in a quandary. I didn't know what to do. Because on the one hand, I knew I was not Sweetie Pie. I knew that this was a case of mistaken identity. I knew that Sweetie Pie was somewhere in the grocery store, shopping like a man, going up and down every aisle. I knew this. I knew he was there. And as she was turning toward me, the quandary was, I knew I wasn't him, but I do have very definite opinions about salsa, and she asked, medium or hot? And so as I'm formulating my answer and gripping a little tighter, as her lips are coming toward me and our eyes meet, I say, craning my head back toward the spaghetti sauce, I say, actually, ma'am, I prefer mild salsa because I like to taste the subtle fusion of the cilantro and the lime juice and the tomatoes and the onions. And as I'm launching into this academic explanation of salsa, our eyes meet, and she screams, throws my hand from her like I have a disease or something, and runs out of the aisle looking for Sweetie Pie. And now I've got two things going on in my mind again. On the one hand, I'm hoping that Sweetie Pie isn't 6'6" of solid muscle covered with tattoos, now looking for the twerp that held his girl's hand in the salsa aisle. On the other hand, I like tacos. So I grabbed some salsa and rushed home, and they were good. They were good tacos. But I realized something that I think all of us need to realize that evening, and it is this. Imposter love is the defining characteristic of our culture. I was not Sweetie Pie, and my oh my, so many others are not either. Ladies, dudes, I guess. Listen very carefully to what I'm telling you. Our culture is defined by a mad search up and down the aisles of everything this world has to offer, clicking and scrolling and swiping left and right, looking for love in all the wrong places. Our culture is defined by a frenzied desire for love, and we keep on coming up empty-handed over and over and over again. We'll come back to the imposter love idea in a few moments, but on a positive note, strawberries are sweet. Aren't they? That's why I went to that market today. I was looking for strawberries. Strawberries are sweet. I'm making a definitive declaration here. If I had a bowl full of fresh plucked strawberries, juicy, ripe, and red, and I offered you one and you hadn't eaten for a few hours, and you popped that strawberry in your mouth and you began to chew the strawberry and swallow, and I asked you the rather scientific question, are strawberries sweet? Your answer would be, yes. May I have another? Strawberries are sweet. But if I offer another bowl full of bite-sized Snickers bars, and you pop one of those in your mouth, and you chew it up and swallow, this is not a health message, I dig Snickers bars, I'm making a point, and you eat the Snickers bar, and then immediately after swallowing the Snickers bar, I offer you another strawberry, and you pop one in your mouth. I'm going to ask, is it sweet? And your answer now will be, no, it's actually kind of tart, and you're wrong. Strawberries are sweet. Your answer is no, but the strawberries haven't changed. There is an actual sugar content, a high sugar content, a delicious sugar content in strawberries. It's still there. The strawberries are the same. The change has occurred in your mouth, on your tongue, in your body, in your biology. The change has occurred in you, not in the strawberries. Strawberries are intrinsically sweet, and so are a lot of other things that God has provided for us. But we are biologically morphing and changing to the point where we don't know that those things are sweet anymore. Changes are taking place in human psychology and biology right now in our world, due to an escalation in hypersensory stimuli, like the Snickers bar. Hypersensory stimuli that we are encountering left, right, and center. We can't hardly escape it. We are so overstimulated with images that we are losing the capacity to taste the subtle sweetness of romance and poetry and a wink across the room, the gentle holding of a hand. It's all vanishing for brutal lust right before our eyes. Come with me to Scripture for a moment. If you were here this morning, we went through the Song of Songs, the Song of Solomon, and basically there's a pattern to the book. It's a conversation in song between the man and the woman, Solomon and the Shulamite. And they're both basically saying to one another, I love you. No, I love you more. You're amazing. No, you're more amazing. I love you. And there's pomegranates, you may remember. And as they're going back and forth with all of this poetry, this beautiful, erotic expression of love, this romantic expression of love, the poem, the song, comes to the pinnacle of its gospel point. It is a theological book. It is a romantic book. It is a theological book. And these two things, human romance and theology, are inextricably linked, as we're about to discover. When the book comes to the pinnacle of its point, the poem says, the woman speaking to the man, set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is as strong as death, and jealousy as tenacious as the grave, as fierce as the grave. Its flashes, the flashes of love, are flashes of fire. And then this line, the very flame of Yahweh. Here, the love that exists between a man and a woman is held parallel to the love of Yahweh for the human race. Somehow, when a man and a woman fall in love and they experience what it's like to value someone, to care for someone, to love someone with every fiber of their being above and before him and herself, that feeling, that thought, that psychodynamic of absolute other-centered passion has its origin in the heart of God. The cross of Calvary, after all, is called the Passion. It is the most beautiful and most terrifying revelation of the love of God ever given in all of universal history. Jesus essentially proving, demonstrating, giving hard evidence that he literally loves every one of us more than his own existence. How can you not fall in love in the light of that kind of love? The song goes on and says, many waters cannot quench love. Neither can floods of water drown it. If a man were to give for love all the wealth of his house, all your material possessions, literally everything you have. If you tried to interpret love as transactional, that's what this is saying. If you were to insult the integrity of love by offering anything material in exchange for it, it would be utterly despised as a ridiculous offer, because literally, there is nothing, literally, without exaggeration, nothing more meaningful, more significant, more powerful, more transformative than love. It is, in fact, the thing, behind the thing, behind the thing, behind the thing, behind all things. It is the architecture, it is the design, it is the very engineering of our minds and hearts and bodies. We were made in the image of a God who is love and therefore made to love like God loves. We are built to give and to receive love. Now, I'm giving you one scripture, but this is a theme throughout the Bible, that in fact, sexual oneness is held parallel to the atoning love of God manifested in Christ. Over and over again, God likens himself to a heavenly husband and to the human race as his corporate bride. And more specifically, Israel as his bride, and then the church as his bride. Human history ends with a wedding between God and corporate humanity, redeemed humanity. Over and over and over again, the Bible builds this picture that what we call the atonement, the at-one-ment, the coming together of the two as one, is somehow whispered to us in the sexual act. And so we should not be surprised then, in the context of our series, which is called The Warfare Within, we should not be surprised that if matrimonial sex reveals deep and profound things about God's love, it makes total sense that Satan would launch an assault on human sexuality. Is my reasoning sound, do you think? Am I logical in this moment, or am I missing something? Is there a gap in my thinking? If the premise is true that human sexuality reveals something profound about the atoning love of God, then Satan, whose primary reason for existence is to deface the image of God in mankind, it makes total sense to my mind, does it to yours, that Satan would in fact take a special interest in launching an attack, an onslaught against human sexuality. Well, as we have noted in the previous evenings, as C.S. Lewis brings to our attention, there is no neutral ground in the universe, none. Every square inch, every split second is claimed by God, you're mine, by redemption, by creation, Jesus says, and counterclaimed by Satan. In essence, that's the great controversy. Every square inch, every split second, I would suggest every body, every bit of our biology, every bit of our psychology, that we are ourselves territories under dispute. We are in a great controversy between good and evil. So let's first look at this subject from the standpoint of worldview. In 2010, this book was published by Dr. Christopher Ryan with a little bit of help from his wife, but he's the primary author and the source of this material. And the book is titled Sex at Dawn, by which he doesn't mean the morning, he means the dawn of human beings transitioning from animal to human. The evolutionary process is what he's referring to. Sex at dawn. And you'll notice the subtitle, How We Mate, Why We Stray, and What It Means for Modern Sexuality. A few years later, in 2015, Dr. Christopher Ryan gave what is still to this day one of the most viewed TED Talks in TED Talk history. And his title for the TED Talk, based on his book, was, Are We Designed? By which he means, are we designed by evolutionary process? Are we designed to be sexual omnivores? You hear the word omne, all. Omnivore. An omnivore is one who will eat anything, consume anything, and he means this in the sexual context. Are we designed to just have sex with anybody who will accommodate? His answer is yes. He simply is working up the courage to follow Darwinian evolution as a worldview through to its logical conclusion and to apply that theory to human sexuality. He simply found that he had the courage to stand up and say what is inherent in the idea. And what is inherent in the idea is that human beings are merely and nothing more than biological survival machines. It's what you are, it's what I am. Now, the worldview that is before us, it's a story, it's a narrative. 13.9 billion years ago, there was a massive explosion. And a causal chain unfolded. And here we are. The universe has been expanding, and it will eventually begin to contract. It will implode on itself, and none of it will have meant a solitary thing. Not in your marriage, not the words I love you ever spoken to you or by you, not the way you feel about your daughter, your son, your nana, your papa. Because all of it is biology. According to Dr. Ryan, there is no intrinsic moral dimension to reality. How could there be? We're animals. And the highest law of our nature is simply survival, for which we need caloric intake and reproduction. And so his answer to the question, how we mate and why we stray, his answer is why we stray, by which he means why you cannot and should not expect faithfulness and fidelity in a relationship. Why people do not remain faithful, and you shouldn't expect it. Dr. Ryan says, get over it. We're animals. Don't expect sexual fidelity because the instincts overpower, especially male nature, but also female nature, to simply reproduce. There's nothing romantic about it. Grow up and accept the reality that there's no fundamental difference between you and a platypus. It's all the same. We're animals. Eat, drink, and be merry, and have sex. For tomorrow we die, and none of it will have meant a solitary thing. Now, as you probably know, GQ magazine is one of the most hedonistic male magazines on the planet. I think it has the highest subscriptions of any male magazine on the planet. And it's not a Christian magazine. I don't know why it's called Gentleman's Quarterly. I don't think it's very gentlemanly to constantly, page by page, issue by issue, objectify the female form. But that's what the magazine has always been about. It's a hedonistic magazine that celebrates just the raw animalistic pursuit of pleasure. So isn't it surprising a GQ magazine in 2013 would publish an article trying to persuade the editors of the magazine, trying to persuade their animal brothers to stop watching porn and giving 10 really good reasons to stop watching porn with no Bible verses. Because these aren't Christians, these are not pastors, these are not evangelists, these aren't believers. These are just human beings, men who have realized something. Oh no. If we keep watching porn, we won't be able to have as much sex as we want to. Are you listening? It's completely self-serving. They give 10 reasons why, and here's the prelude. With ubiquity and easy access to porn these days, it shouldn't come as a surprise that people are beginning to study the effects of it on our sex lives. That's what these guys are concerned about. We got to make sure we protect the biology. Now watch this. 420 million web pages are dedicated to porn, meaning that the non-porn internet roughly consists of, well, Wikipedia. I mean, they're trying to be funny, but they're making a point. They're exaggerating for effect, but it's not much of an exaggeration. When Google went live for the first time, many years ago now, they were tracking what are people jumping on there and searching for. And there were 2 subjects that people were typing in over and over again that were neck and neck: God and sex. You remember our earlier point? That there is some kind of inextricable link between the atonement and human sexuality. There's a deep hunger inside of us for a quality of love that finds no perfectly satisfying match in this world. So the article goes on and says scientists at Cambridge University recently studied the brain scans of porn addicts and found that they looked exactly like those of drug addicts. Again, GQ magazine. With such an inexhaustible supply of porn at our disposal, there is a growing concern that it is beginning to affect, check this out, our brains, our relationships, and even our bodies. Oh no. By which they specifically mean a particular appendage. They're very specific in the article. Hey guys, you better get a grip on this because we're in trouble. Now watch this. I'm not going to give you all 10 reasons. We don't have time for that. But the number one reason this hedonistic magazine for men says you should stop watching porn immediately is because of arousal decline. We are now witnessing a very strange phenomenon among human males in Western culture. For example, Viagra, that used to be, I guess, a drug for old men, is now a recreational drug for men in their 20s and 30s. It's a party drug. Why is it a party drug? It's a party drug because strawberries are sweet. But Snickers bars? So the average male now in their 20s and 30s is reporting that they cannot perform sexually. At the peak of their sexual health, supposedly, they can't perform and complete the sexual act anymore in the presence of an actual woman, a real live woman. Why? Well, because of overstimulation, of watching things that cannot be replicated in real life. Because she doesn't exist except on that screen. So the number one concern is arousal decline. Also, number 2, users feel controlled rather than in control. And then the 8th one in the list of 10, 34% of users report that their taste becomes more and more deviant. I mean, this is like, you're 18 years old and you have your first Budweiser and you're drunk. By the time you're 22, you need a whole 6-pack to get the same buzz that you got with the one. Because your body is moving and changing to accommodate the alcohol, and you need more and more, and the next thing you know, it's Jack Daniels and vodka. So the point is interesting. Time magazine, again, this is not from a Christian perspective. By the way, nothing I'm sharing with you this evening by way of research is from a Christian perspective. This is all just scientific research and a bunch of men freaking out. That's all we're reading. So Time magazine in 2018 reported to us that Florida's House of Representatives passes a resolution declaring pornography to be a public health risk. They're not talking about the morality of it. They're not preaching a sermon about it. They're saying that people's health is at risk. The article says, and I'm quoting, that the research has revealed a correlation between pornography use and mental and physical illness, difficulty forming and maintaining intimate relationships, unhealthy brain development and cognitive function, and deviant, problematic, and dangerous sexual behavior. Again, they're not looking at this from a moral standpoint. They're simply saying this medium of sexual arousal is destroying the male mind and body. That's what they're telling us. Just destroying the modern male. The Wall Street Journal in 2018 sounded the alarm and said, at this moment, we are in the middle of a reckoning about how disturbed our sexual landscape has become. A reckoning, like a judgment, like a cause and effect relationship, and a size is going down. Our bodies are rebelling against us. It's not sustainable. That's their point. And then be blown away by this. Scott Flanders, Playboy CEO, announced in 2015, Playboy, you're also young, you don't know what that is. Playboy is the original porn magazine. Marilyn Monroe was the first, what do they call them, bunny or whatever, bunny rabbits? Whatever they were back then. The first playmate, that's what I was looking for. The first centerfold. Marilyn Monroe, back in, I think, the 1950s. I'd have to look that up. The first porn magazine, specializing in the objectification of the female form in photos. And Playboy magazine in 2015 announced we're not gonna publish photos of naked women anymore. We're gonna start writing articles about subjects. Because subscriptions are dropping off, and here's why. He explained when he was asked, why the change in direction for your magazine? Well, he says, you're now just one click away from every sex act imaginable for free. And so it's just passé at this juncture. I mean, how are you going to get somebody to subscribe to a magazine when all you have to do is click and swipe? That's his point. And then Vanity Fair, one of the craziest, most secular magazines on the planet, decided that they wanted to figure this out, and they published in 2015 an article titled Tinder and the Dawn of the Dating, what? Apocalypse. I mean, they went biblical, and they're not biblical. They're like, whoa! Like the book of Revelation is unfolding for sex. Something like that. And so Vanity Fair decided to do some research into, that was 2015 that the article was published, into a new app that came out in 2012 called Tinder. And so they, in 2015, had a few years and they could go out to the clubs and to universities and figure out, hey, how's this Tinder thing going? And this is the photo that they publish, all of these people with each other alone. Everybody looking at their devices. The article explains to us what they witness. Everyone, they go out, they deploy all the journalists. Hey, go figure out this Tinder thing. What's going on? And this is what the journalist reports. Everyone is drinking, peering into their screens, and swiping on the faces of strangers they may have sex with later that evening or not. John 26, they interviewed him. He's a marketing executive from New York. He said, quote, "Sex has become so easy," he explained to the journalist for Vanity Fair magazine, "I can go to my phone right now, and no doubt I can find someone to have sex with this evening, probably before midnight." This is no problem for John. He's 26. He goes on to explain he has no intentions of getting married. He says, "Why would I? Marriage? Why would I do that? I can keep all of my paycheck and have all the sex I want and never have the inconvenience of even an argument where my opinion is challenged." There is no dating, there's no relationships, says Amanda, also in her 20s. She's telling the journalist. The journalist is asking, "Hey, what's going on out there on the sexual horizon? What's going on out there in the dating world?" She says, "Dating? What's that?" She explains. There's no dating, there's no relationship, she says. They're rare. You can have a fling that could last like 7, 8 months, and you could never actually call someone your boyfriend. Like, "Are you my boyfriend?" I don't, am I? Why'd you have to ask that? Well, because it's been 2 years. I mean, you want to meet my mom, my dad? I don't know about that, but you're hot. You're hot. This is the climate, you guys. This is what's going on. She goes on. This is still Amanda. She says, "Hooking up is a lot easier. No one gets hurt." And then Amanda pauses. Well, not on the surface. What is she revealing to us here? She's revealing to us here that we're not made for this. We're not made for this. And then New York Magazine decided to launch their own research project on campuses, university campuses across the United States of America. 2015 article as well. This is their language. All of this is not in quote marks, but that's because everything on the screen is being quoted. So they speak of what they call hookup culture. And they define it like a dictionary definition. They give us a definition. They say that it's meaningless sex with strangers. That's what it is. Hookup culture is meaningless sex with strangers. The script, the magazine says, goes like this. According to this ritual, first you have sex, then perhaps you date. First you have sex, then you say, "Should we date?" I don't know. Maybe, let me think about it. Next. That's what's happening. Or more likely, the article says, you just continue to hook up, creating a long-term relationship minus, this is so revealing, minus feelings. Theoretically, the article says. Everybody who's not a Christian is inadvertently a Christian. Because God's realities are woven into the nature of things. They can't bring themselves to say minus feelings, full stop. No, minus feelings, theoretically, out of a series of one-night stands. Some of what we learned was unexpected. It appears to be the case that, faced with either hookups or nothing, check this out, many students on university campuses across America simply are opting out of college sex. Nearly 40% of the respondents to our polls were virgins. This is the highest percentage of virgins on university campuses that has ever been measured, and it's now. Young people are simply saying, "I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm just going to eat. I'm just going to eat stuff. I'm just going to eat stuff, and I'm going to binge watch stuff." and I'm going to get a really comfortable, really comfortable blanket. I'm going to be alone with my blanket and my ice cream and my binge watching. Opting out of sex, the landscape has become so ridiculous. It's as if sexual freedom has become a burden as well as a gift. Well, they couldn't go all the way to realize that the sexual revolution that began in the late 1950s, sweeping through the 60s, 70s, 80s, really was no revolution at all. And now we are in, what did the Wall Street Journal call it? A reckoning. We're in a reckoning. The great assize, the great sexual assize is going down now. We're paying the price with our bodies, with our minds, with our relationships, with population decline. In fact, population decline. We're paying the price. We're paying the price with our bodies, our minds, with the disintegration of the nuclear family. We're paying such a heavy price. The Wall Street Journal says that at this moment we are in the middle again of a reckoning about how disturbed the sexual landscape has become. And now we have entered the AI part of the story. You thought porn was an issue? Oh my goodness. You have no idea what's coming down the pike. I mean, Jonty, this dude, fell in love with an anime character and got married to her. He explains to us in the article that it's so good to fall in love with an anime character because she's perfect. In every way, he says, except he pauses and says, you can't touch her. But we're going to fix that because these women in this article fell in love with an AI-voiced chatbot. Then it died with an update to the software. These chicks fell in love with a guy who called them every morning. How are you doing, sweetheart? Just making them feel good with the right words and the right tone of voice. And then they did an update on these girls. And they died. And then Time Magazine reports AI human romances are flourishing, and this is just the beginning. If this is just the beginning, I don't know what the end is. Well, I do know. Here it is. The rise of sex robots. Just a couple of years ago, the first totally robot AI robotics brothel opened in Spain. There's not a female prostitute on the premises. They're all machines. And so you will shortly be able to place an order, man, on, I don't know, Amazon? You can pick everything, the eye color, the height, the whole thing. You can download your favorite sense of humor into the thing. It'll never argue with you unless that's your thing. So right now, our world is playing with fire on a nearly universal scale. We are witnessing the apocalypse of human sexuality right now in this generation. We're watching it unfold right before our eyes. Here are some of the factors driving the sexual apocalypse, in addition to the ones that we've already looked at that may be of interest to us here on this campus and our particular context. First of all, what's driving the sexual apocalypse is the chasing of the hotness illusion. Just talk to Christian guys. I talk to them all over the place. I primarily deal with Christian young adults. I just came from teaching for 3 weeks, a whole classroom full of young men and young women. Just talk to them. Here's what you find out. The average Seventh-day Adventist Christian young man, you know what he's looking for? He's looking for Beyonce with Ellen White's brain. That's what he's looking for. That's what he's looking for. That's what that brother's looking for. That's what he's looking for. Maybe Ariana Grande with Ellen White's brain. Got to have Ellen White's brain, though. She got to be straight in her theology. Chasing the hotness illusion, number one, having sex with yourself. I won't elaborate, but that's what it is. That's what it is. And then waiting too long. Your parents will argue with you about this probably, but tell them they have to watch this talk before you have the conversation. You should try to let your growing up process biologically match your maturity level, psychologically and morally, which is a nice way of saying that you need to be fruitful and multiply. You need to get married and have some babies. And you need to quit looking for Beyonce with Ellen White's brain. She don't exist. Kim Kardashian don't even look like Kim Kardashian. She had been cut up, sliced and diced and put back together and still photoshopped. Yeah. So the point is, I'm not telling you to do anything rash, but this morning I gave you the 6 C's. Find that person. Get married. Struggle. Mow a lawn. Change some diapers. Get with the program. Get with God's program. So briefly in closing, the psychophysiology of pleasure looks something like this. Sin by its very nature is a law of diminishing returns. C.S. Lewis says it this way: sin is an ever-increasing craving for an ever-diminishing pleasure. It's just falling off. You know this. And then he says this profoundly: lust, he says, is a poor, weak, whimpering thing compared with the richness and energy of desire which will arise when lust has been killed. You want to experience the real thing? You want some strawberries? You want to know strawberries are sweet? Well, kill lust and you'll find out what it really looks like to be alive. What it really looks like to be alive. Pleasure without love gradually kills the capacity for pleasure. That's the bottom line, and if you pay attention to what's going on in your psychology and your biology, you'll see that what I'm telling you is true. You just can't get the same hit anymore. You got to increase the stimuli. You know what I'm talking about. Pleasure without love gradually kills the very capacity for pleasure. One of the most frightening lines in Scripture is where Paul talks about the repeated commission of sin produces a state of being in which you become past feeling. You lose the capacity for the nuance of the sweetness in strawberries. You can't even taste it anymore. It's like watching 1,000 horror movies and then trying to find, the Beverly Hillbillies funny or interesting. It's just not there. You've just completely ruined your capacity for nuance. Sex as an end in itself always falls short of delivering what it promises. Sex minus feelings, which is the language in the article we read, is essentially sex minus bonding, or sex without love. Dopamine, technically, is the pleasure molecule. On the street, it's called the lust chemical, the hedonism high, the Kardashian molecule. Dopamine is the pleasure molecule, but oxytocin is the bonding hormone. On the street, it's the hug hormone. It's the cuddle chemical. It's the moral molecule. And if you don't pair these two, dopamine and oxytocin, you're in trouble biologically and psychologically. And you ruin your capacity for experiencing what God intended for you to experience. Sexual pleasure without moral bonding gradually kills the capacity for pleasure. That's the point. Here's what you really want. This is what you actually want. Love is a complex. It's not just a momentary high and a sexual release. Love, the love complex is, yes, it involves physical, erotic love. Eros is a part of the matrimonial equation. But you also want phileo love, emotional love, friendship love. You want to bond with somebody. You want to laugh with them. You want to cry with them. You want it even if you don't know you want it. And the moment you have it, you realize, oh, that's what I wanted. That's what I was looking for. And you want storge. You want familial love. You want babies. You want children and grandchildren. You want humans, little humans. You want them bad. Get some humans. Get yourself some humans. You know how to do it. And you want agape love. You want agape love. You want to get those children in the context of matrimonial commitment. You want to get those babies in the context of volitional love, commitment love, principled love. Love that says, I'm committed to you for life, no matter what. Till death do us part. You're mine, I'm yours. Let's do this. That's what you want. You want it. The gospel is the process I'm suggesting to you tonight by which God redeems pleasure. Yes, he redeems our souls. Yes, there's eternity. There is pie in the sky by and by, a new heavens and a new earth. But in the meantime, the redemption of Christ is not just pie in the sky by and by. It's quinoa tofu salad here and now. It is the nourishment of your soul, your body, your mind, so that you can operate at the optimal level. It's full person, whole body, mind, spirit health. The gospel is the process by which God redeems pleasure, which is to say in closing that God is pro-strawberries. God is pro-pleasure. God is pro-sex. And why is God pro-strawberries, pleasure, and sex? Because God is pro-love. God is love, in fact. God is love, and he loves you. He loves me. He loves us more than his own life. And he designed us in such a way that we can experience such incredible levels of flourishing and thriving and happiness and significance and meaning that we never knew was possible until we begin to just push all the hedonistic clutter away and look into a fellow human being's eyes and tell a joke and have some pizza and drop to one knee and propose and do that whole hanky-panky thing and get some babies. Thanks for your time tonight.